Right, hello YouTube. So my apologies right off the bat for any issues with video quality. I'm very constrained by my internet connection in terms of the bitrates I can realistically use, because basically it will take forever to upload a video if I don't use a sensible bitrate for my connection. This is the first time that I've done one of these videos, so if my microphone's a little bit loud or if I've got it set up badly, I do apologise. Feel free to send me a message in Discord about any changes you think I should make. That said, let's get into this. So I'm Winter's Crescendo. This is the first video on my channel, and this is Final Upgrade Experimental Branch 0.3.2. At the time of me making this video, there's no tutorial in game yet for this, and there's no real, there's no real sort of tutorials that have been set up by anyone else as far as I'm aware. So players coming from an earlier version or diving straight into this for the very first time will feel a bit overwhelmed by everything. There's been some massive changes to the way you progress and to the way logistics work with the 3.2 branch. So there's a little bit to go through so that people know what to expect and how to obviously move forward in the game. Right, so right off the bat we'll just jump into new game. For a first time player I would just recommend leaving the settings as they are, maybe turning hints off because they don't really do anything at the moment. But otherwise just leave things as they are. Turning peaceful mode on will be very tempting for a new player, but I'd recommend against it, because if you leave the faction aggression triggers set to no, the enemy factions on the map won't actually attack you. Even if you attack them, they won't send ships into your own sectors, they'll just sit there and take it. Which is great for a new player because it means that you can dip your toe into combat and find out how combat works without putting any of your progression at risk. That's important. The combat in Final Upgrade is unlike any other game I've played. If you haven't seen how it works, if you haven't experimented with it, and then jump into a game with aggressive factions, they are going to curb stomp you pretty badly. I do recommend just leaving yourself this option to experiment safely with the combats before taking on a game with aggressive factions. Right, that's it, let's jump in, and this will be the next screen we see. Now, just to walk you through some basic camera controls, you can scroll around by using the W, A, S and D keys, or by moving your mouse to the edge of the viewport. You can zoom in and out by using the scroll wheel, and as you can see there's a lot of variation on the zoom levels here, which is great because it means that when you've got a lot of ships in one sector you can zoom out and select a different ship quite easily. If you keep zooming out, you will eventually hit a threshold where it tips over into the map, and you can then just mouse over a sector and scroll in to zoom into that sector and see what's going on. So fairly well thought out UI for that. You can also get to the map by pressing the M key or by pressing this button up in the top left hand corner of your screen. So a few options there depending on what you prefer. I tend to use the scroll out just because it's already on my mouse. It's already on my mouse, which I'm using for other things anyway. So it just saves reaching across the keyboard. Right, so some other elements to your user interface here. At the top you have your target population, so your ultimate target is to build up to 1 billion population through AI down at the bottom here. But that will take time, so in the meantime you'll get these smaller population targets, and each time you hit one of these targets I believe one of the technologies on the tech tree unlocks. Or upgrades itself, I'm not entirely sure which, but there is some advancement up the tech tree every time you hit one of those population targets. At the bottom you've got a tracker for your technology, so total memory 8000 XP, free memory 8000 XP, because I've not researched anything yet. We will want to start some research right off the bat, so we'll be looking at that in just a moment. Basically, just to explain how this works in terms of progression, the total memory pool you have is dependent on the number of sectors you control, particularly those that can support a population. So if I go back out to my map quickly, at the moment we only have this one sector, this one with the blue highlight around it, that we actually control. These two sectors with the dark grey we can see into because they're connected to a sector we control or have visited, but we haven't visited them yet, and we can't see beyond them, and we can't see what resources they'll generate. Now, I actually know which resources these will generate because the 6 systems around Sol in the bottom left-hand corner here are exactly the same from one run to another. They will always generate the same resources, and they will always have a constant demand at least, for the same resources. The other system that's always the same is this binary star system up in the top right-hand corner, at the far end of the map. In an earlier version of the game, getting there was basically your goal for the game. There was a gate there that you had to jump through to complete the game. With the new branch, I'm not sure if that's still the case or if it's just a population goal, but either way, that star system up in the top right hand corner is still fixed as part of the generation. Everything in between is pseudo-randomly generated, so the rest of this will vary from run to run. So sometimes something like Polaris will be way over there, you'll get Proxima Centauri, at the moment that is actually close to Earth, but sometimes it'll be up in the middle of the field, which doesn't really make sense if you know these stars. But yeah, basically these two systems are set and everything else is randomly generated. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm only going to be looking at developing Venus and Mars. I'm not going to progress beyond that because I basically don't want to take that exploration away from you. I don't want to show you too much of the game, particularly if you're a first-time player. That sense of exploration, that sense of development at your own pace is a big part of what makes the game, and I don't want to take that away from you. Right, so I mentioned that we'll need to do some technology right off the bat, so we have two critical resources here on the station, and this is why we'll need to do some research. The first critical resource is your power. If you press the left Alt key over your batteries, with your mouse over your batteries, that'll show you the status of each one, and you can see that each one of these stores 1000 units of energy to start with. That's one of our critical resources. If we run out of power, we cannot progress, and just to show you this, I'm going to turn my generators off at the moment. I wouldn't ask players to do this, this is just me doing this for demonstration purposes. If I turn the generators off, you can see that the batteries aren't actually changing at all. At the moment they're all still full green, there's no change in their colour, none of them are running down. Your ship does not use power when it's idling. In other games like Oxygen Not Included, batteries will slowly discharge over time. Not in this game. There's no maintenance cost to your ship, so having a ship just sitting there idling doesn't cost you anything. Remember that. Feel free to have a spare ship sat around if you want to. It's not going to cost you anything except the resources it costs to build it in the first place. Your second critical resource is over here. So this stack type blocks here is iron. This is refined iron. That is your basic building material at the beginning of the game. There's only so much on your basic ship here, so you will run out of this resource if you don't have a method of replenishing it. You'll see this machine is stacked in the middle here. This is an extractor which turns iron ore into usable iron, and these three storage units at the right that are plumbed into the extractor are all storage units for iron ore. We cannot mine refined iron. We can only mine iron ore. So we need a method of turning iron ore into iron, which is our extractor. But at the beginning of the game, the extractor will not run because we don't have the research for that actually unlocked at the beginning of the game. That is the first research that we need to put in the game. Otherwise, we need to do. Otherwise, we will run out of iron and we won't be able to progress. So, two ways to get into the tech tree. You can either click into the box down at the bottom here, or you can press the T key on your keyboard. You can also find the tech tree on your left-hand side here, the fourth item down on the left-hand menu. Whichever method you use, this will be the first screen you see. Just like on the main screen, you can use the W, A, S and D keys to move around, and you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. You only have 3 zoom levels on this tech tree, but you can basically just get an overview or zoom in and see what you're actually doing. Just like on the main screen, you can press the left Alt key to get some additional information on particular research tech that you're looking at. So you can see this one's just giving us iron ingots, a stack of 8 ingots. It's not really saying much. But yeah, there is a little bit of information there, particularly when you're looking at the raw materials like iron or copper. You'll see that it shows you these resistances. For basic building materials, they basically have no resistances, so if you're attacked by an enemy, they will just tear through this material very quickly. There are, further up the tech tree, some advanced materials like this nickel gold composite, and if I alt over that, that'll show you that it's got some resistances against different types of weapons. So these high-end materials are basically armour that you can build your ships out of to make them more durable in combat, but as you can see, they're a long way up the tech tree. Early game, you'll basically be building everything out of iron, which is very quick and easy to mine. You don't need much logistics to support it. So at the beginning of the game while you're figuring things out, feel free to just build everything from iron. You can maybe build from nickel or copper as an alternative to help spread your material loadout, so you're not just putting all your load on 1 or 2 planets. But yeah, so right off the bat, this is the research we'll need to do. So click on your iron extraction, hit research, and if we hit T again to come out of this, or press the escape key to come out of this, when we're back on our main screen, you'll see that the bar at the bottom has changed. The yellow bar shows us how much of our memory pool we're going to be using with the research we have queued, and the smaller green bar will slowly move up to match that. That's our research completing, and that technology slowly unlocking. It doesn't unlock as soon as you select it, even if you have the memory available. It needs to go through this process. The memory you have available basically creates a cap on how many researches you can actually queue up and complete. Particularly at the beginning of the game, I would strongly recommend not researching anything until you need it, because you are working with a limited pool of memory. So as this research is progressing, you'll see that the research stations have all lit up. You can see just by looking at the ship that those are working, and one of our batteries here has begun running down. As I mentioned earlier, the default configuration, these generators are turned on and will top up the batteries, but I've turned them off at the moment just so you can see how the power system works and get used to that idea while you're looking at the video. Right, so with that iron extraction research running, we're going to begin taking some sectors and gaining access to some basic resources that we'll need to progress the game. So, to move our ship, we want to either right-click on the ship's core over here and go to jump to sector. Alternatively, you can left-click on the ship's core and press the J key on your keyboard. Both of those will bring up the map which we saw earlier, and you'll be able to hover your mouse over a sector you want to travel to, and you'll see this readout, 41 megawatts over however many megawatts. This is showing you how much power the jump will take. Every jump with the ship takes power, and how much energy you have available on the ship. So this is a great way of planning and just making sure that you're not going to run out of power before you go somewhere. Okay, so we're going to go to Mars to start with. So when I select my target destination, you can see that pre-charges and then makes our move. The amount of time it takes to pre-charge depends on how big the ship is. If you're playing with very large ship sizes, a ship can take a very long time to move, particularly if it's built with a lot of heavy armour or carrying a lot of resources. Now we're at Mars. You can see now that there's a planetary resource tab here on the left that says iron ore. This is the material that this planet can generate for us, but it won't generate any until we occupy the planet. To do that, we need to right-click our ship core again and choose the option at the bottom, Claim Sector, 1000 megawatts. It uses power. I forgot how loud that was. It uses power to claim a sector, and you can only claim a limited number of sectors at the beginning of the game. I believe the default limit is 8. Earth counts as one of those, and you already have Earth occupied. So in practice, you can only claim 7 sectors at the beginning of the game without advancing further up the tech tree. We'll come back to that towards the end of the video. Now, as soon as I've claimed a sector, it's begun generating resources down here. You can see that there's now 30 units of iron ore available, and it's growing at the rate of 1 a second. A planet can stockpile up to, I believe it's 10,000 units of a raw material, which sounds like a lot, but once you've got production chains set up, you will be able to chew through that very quickly. Our research for iron extraction has just finished, which means that our iron extractor can now begin turning iron ore into iron. So we now have a source of iron ore. We now have a machine which can turn iron ore into usable iron, which means we can now continue to build and not have to worry about running out of resources. So this is our first critical resource situation sort of resolved. We'll want to build a proper refinery here, which can take care of producing all of our iron for us. That will take our reliance off of, we won't have to then micromanage this ship basically. But at the moment, this just puts us in a position where we can restock our ship and not have to worry about running out of material to build with. Now, to restock your ship, what you want to do is drag the iron ore icon from that bottom left planetary resource tab over to these storage units on your ship. When you do that, your ship will pre-charge a jump, disappear down to the planet, and it will basically pick up as much iron ore as it has free space for. So that's how you restock a resource with the initial ship, and it's something you'll be doing a lot of, particularly if you're trying to build quite a lot to start with. The next critical resource we have is power. So we've already used 3 of our batteries and haven't even built anything yet. The power in our ship will slowly run down, and I'll turn on the generators in a bit so you can see how those work as well. But basically, we will need to have fuel to run those generators with to avoid running out of power. So the sector we're going to want to go for that is Venus. Now these sectors are always the same at the beginning of the game, so you can guarantee that Mars will always produce iron and that Venus will always produce carbon ore. Just like before, it's not producing anything at the moment because we haven't claimed the sector. And just to show you this on the map quickly, now that we've explored the sector and can see what resource it generates, you've got this little icon here showing you what the resource type is, and the sector itself is now in a double white outline rather than the dull grey outline it had before. You can see that Saturn also has a double white, and this asteroid sector and this other sector have a single white. So just to explain this, the single outlines are sectors which you can control, but which you cannot establish a colony on. So you basically use those as a bridge to get to other sectors beyond them, but they don't give you anything on their own. The double lines here show you that Venus and Saturn are both planets that you can colonize. I'm assuming for Saturn it will be a moon of Saturn rather than Saturn itself, but these are both sectors that you can colonize. The bright white around Venus shows that we've explored this sector, and you can also see what resource it's generating. And the dull grey around Saturn, the asteroid, and this empty sector over here are all saying that these are sectors that we can see, but we haven't explored yet. We haven't sent a ship to them yet to see what they're connected to or what resources they can give us. Now, I'm not going to go exploring in this early tutorial. We're just looking at these first 3 sectors just to get you started. Okay, so this planet can produce carbon ore, so we're going to want to claim this, just like we did for Mars. So right-click our ship core and hit Claim Sector. And again, I forgot how loud that is. Right. So we've just used another battery to claim the sector, and that is now producing carbon ore, which is our basic resource for our generators. Just like with the iron ore, you can top that up by dragging that over to your storage unit. The ship will go and collect more. And basically, as long as you keep an eye on your carbon ore up here, as long as you don't run out of carbon ore, you won't run out of power. So at the beginning of the game, you will need to micromanage your ship. You will need to keep track of the resources you have available, because if these run out, you will get stranded. So yeah, that's basically how you avoid your game over. Claim these sectors and just keep an eye on your resources. Make sure that you don't run out. I'm going to turn the generators back on so you can see how these work. So if we right click and turn on and copy to all. Okay, so the tubes are basically sending carbon down from our storage units up here into our generators. Our generator is burning through the carbon ore and producing power, which is topping our batteries back up to full power here. So what will happen is when you run out of carbon ore, your generators will stop running because they don't have any fuel. Your batteries will start depleting, and if they run all the way down to the bottom, then that's it, you're stranded. So that's your game over situation at this point. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set ourselves up so that we don't have to micromanage our ships. At the moment with our basic ship, every time we do something, we're using either fuel or we're using our raw materials, and if we're having to babysit this ship, then it's going to take a very long time to progress, and you're probably going to feel frustrated having to go back and restock everything. So we're going to want to build 2 stations to start with, one to refine iron for us, and one to refine carbon into stored power for us. Building these 2 stations will free us up from having to micromanage the ship, as it will be able to collect power as it needs to, and it will be able to collect resources as it needs to. So to start our first station, we're going to hit build from the left hand menu, or press the B key on the keyboard. Either way you do it, this will be the menu that comes up. And to start our first station, we're going to want to build a station core. You can only build 1 station in each sector. So after I build the station core, it won't let me put down another. You can see that's now redded out. And if I actually close down the build menu and opened it again, the station core will no longer appear because there's already one in the sector. You'll see that the ship hasn't actually doing anything at the moment. It's not an auto builder, so it won't do anything yet until we tell it to. Once we've built our station core, we then need to put down some walls that we can actually use to start building machines on. So to do that, you want to press go into build menu, hit the wall 1 segment. This is your basic floor space that you can build machines on, and select iron as it's the only resource we have access to at the moment. You can then hold down your left shift key and drag your mouse across to basically just set a panel, background panel that you can build onto. At the moment it's in blue and it's transparent. That's because this is basically just a blueprint, it's not anything built yet. To turn that into an actual building, we then drag the mouse from the core of our ship onto our blueprints. You'll see the icon change to construct, and when you release the mouse, our ship will reposition itself and start our construction for us. I'm just going to accelerate the game for a few moments for the sake of the video, not to make it too long. Okay, and once our basic build is done, you can see that we've exhausted some of the iron ore from our containers here. Our iron extractor has been running and has been topping us up, so we haven't run out. Right, so we have our basic floor plan. What we need now is a way for this to bring the carbon ore up from the surface and turn that carbon ore into usable power. So go back to our build menu. We want, in machines, a trade hub. This is the building that pulls resources up from the surface of a planet. It's going to be one of your most reused buildings at the beginning of the game, and alongside this unit, which is the storage T1. This basically gives somewhere for your resources to go when you pull them up. Because we're looking to generate power, we also need a power generator, so you'll find this in your machine section. And I'm going to build 2. Now, I'm not building this in the most efficient way possible. That's not my goal today. It's just to show you how things work and show you how to build things. Once you've laid down the blueprint for those, you go back into your build menu and select the pneumo tube. You'll need these to connect your machines together, basically so resources can flow from one to the other to the other. Now, what you want to do is just draw a straight line from your trade hub into one of the generators. That creates one pipe for resources to flow down, and do again the same for the second generator. Now, you can build pneumo tubes as well in around corners. You can snake them through things if you want to. At the moment, we're just building in a straight line because it's early game. We're not really doing anything complex at the moment. So I'll just take this back off. Oop, didn't mean to do that. Never mind. Right, okay. So again, just like before, it's in this sort of transparent look, and that's because it's just a blueprint. We haven't actually built anything yet. Just like before, we need to drag the core of our ship onto the station, and that will tell it to construct. And once again, I'm just going to speed things along quickly. Right, so with this built, you can see that the trade hub is telling us that it's got no power available. This is because we've got no batteries on the station. There's nothing for it to draw power from. Even though this will be a power generating station, it needs a little kick of power to get it up and going. So what we're going to do is set the machines up to start with, right click our trade hub and tell that we want to bring carbon ore up from the surface. We can then close this screen. Our storage unit won't store anything until we tell it what resource to store. So again, we're going to right click that, hit the wrench icon, and tell that we want to store carbon ore, our basic material here for power. And again, our generators won't do anything until they're told what resources they're supposed to be using. So we need to right click on one of these, again click the wrench icon and select carbon ore. You'll see that the rest of the options here are locked out because we haven't got advanced up the tech tree to be able to use these as fuels yet. So select our carbon ore. This time, instead of closing out, I'm going to hit copy to selected machines. And this will let me click on the second power generator, which will then inherit the settings from the first one without me having to click through the menu again. If you're setting up a large number of machines to use the same resource, this is a big time saver. Okay, so we now have the machine set up, but they need power to draw to be able to bring anything up from the surface, and we're going to need batteries to store power in. So we're going to go back to our build menu and just lay down some banks of batteries. Because the whole purpose of this first station is to create power for our other ships, you can go mad with the number of batteries. You don't really have to worry about how many you put down. You can just go mad as long as you've got enough iron to build them. So just going to speed things along again. Once our batteries are built, we need to move some power over from our flagship to give it a kick to start with. To do that, you want to drag from one of the batteries on your flagship over to one of the batteries on the station. That'll give you this screen, which you can then use in theory to move power between the two ships by changing where this is and hitting start. At the moment, there's no power on the station, so we can only move power to the station. And our first tick available is going to be about 4,000 megawatts at the moment, just because of the number of battery packs I've built. The lowest tick available will vary depending on the battery capacity on the station. So we're just going to give that one tick to start with, hit start, and our flagship will send some power over. As soon as it sends that power over, you can see the machines come to life. That is now able to bring resources up from the planet's surface and is starting to fill our storage unit, our buffer here. And that is then able to feed our 2 power generators. I'm going to zoom out because I don't like the way those flickers when you're zoomed in too close. And with the power generators running, the batteries are now starting to fill themselves up. There's one more thing we need to do with the station before we leave, and that's we want to right click on the station core and set an energy policy. By default, a ship will be set to recharge station, but because this station is a power generator for us, we want to change it to give ships energy. This will allow any other ship to come and collect energy from it when they're running low, which will make things a bit easier to start with. But once we've built an energy carrier, a particular type of ship, this will basically tie us up from having to come back and collect any iron ore at all. Carbon ore. Speaking of carbon ore, you can see that our ship has actually run out of carbon ore at the moment, and we're now eating into our batteries. So before we leave, we're going to restock our carbon ore. Okay, and that will just top our generators up again. Right, so with power production running here, the next thing that we'll need to do is go and build an iron refinery. So for this, we'll want to go back to Mars. Now again, I'm not being particularly efficient with my builds here. I'm not trying to make them look pretty. I'm just trying to make this easy to follow for first-time players. Right, so once we're back at Mars, we'll need to do, as we did before, we'll need to build a station core. And this is so we can basically start our station for this sector. We'll also need to select our wall 1 segments and select our iron again, and basically just drag out a floor plan so we've got some space to build on. Just like before, drag our construct icon over to the station, and away we go. And just like before, I'm just going to speed things along a bit for the video. Okay, all done. Right, so for this planet, instead of generating power, this planet's going to be producing iron, which is our raw material for building with. Once we've got this in place, this will save us from having to keep going down to the planet and manually restocking, which we need to do because we've run out of iron again. We'll be able to basically set a ship to come and collect resources from here and power from the other station we just built, and that ship will then go and do all of our construction errands for us without us having to babysit it. So this is basically a big part of getting yourself set up at the beginning of the game. It's basically you want to take away your reliance on this flagship, because the flagship does require a lot of micromanagement, and get yourself into a position where you can just start doing things and not have to babysit different ships in your fleet. Okay, so in terms of what we need for this station itself, we want to hit build, and like before, we need a trade hub to bring resources up from the planet. I always tend to build a buffer next to my trade hub, basically just a storage unit that you can dump stock into, and that way the stock's already there on your station. It just means that you don't really need to. The trade hub has got a very high throughput, so in theory you could just bring the resources straight up from the planet. I just prefer to have the buffer there just to... I think it's just a personal preference for me, really. I can't think of any good reason why you'd need one, but I do tend to build one anyway. In terms of machines, we'll want this time extractors. These take the iron ore that comes up from the surface and converts those into useful iron. I'm going to lay down 4 to start with for these ones, and that is because there is going to be a little bit of, well, there's going to be a lot of demand for iron. It's one of your basic materials. It's used for pretty much everything. So it's better to go a little bit overboard and have a little bit of extra capacity for it. Just like before, we're going to draw some tubes in to connect our trade hub to our production units here. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to draw a line from our storage unit down to each of the extractors that I've built. Now, one of these lines can actually feed 2 extractors. You can, if I show you this, you can actually fork these lines off to go multiple ways. A single line has enough capacity to feed 2 generators, but sorry, to feed 2 extractors rather. But for first-time players, it can be a little bit difficult to follow, so I've chosen to do it this way instead. Just make it easier to see what's happening. It's easy to visualize. Pardon me. Okay, now the extractors need to feed into either a storage unit so you can pick up resources from them, or another machine if you're then doing something else with the materials. So I'm going to build some storage units here. Iron, like I said earlier, is one of our basic building materials, so we're going to want a lot of storage for it because we will be using a lot of it as the game progresses. Okay, there's not quite lined up, but that doesn't matter, not at this early stage. Again, we're just going to drag our core over to begin the construction on that and speed through that a bit. Okay, so like before, we need to set our trade hub up to bring iron ore up from the surface this time. We need to set our first storage units up for iron ore. And we need to tell our extractors what to do. So right click on those, hit the wrench icon, and we are refining iron. Like with the generators, everything else is locked out at the moment because we don't have the technology for it. Just like before, we can hit copy to selected machines, and rather than doing that for all 4 machines, we can just stamp down, and that will give that same setting to all of those machines. For these storage units here, we want to be wanting to store our refined iron. So we'll select that from our menu, and again copy to selected storage. The storage units will show you what they're set to, so that does make things a little bit easier to see what's going on. Like with the research station, we're going to need some storage for power. But unlike the research station, unlike the power production station rather, we don't want to build too many of these. The station isn't generating power, so building too many of them, we're just going to end up doing a lot of we're just going to end up ferrying a lot of power over that's just sitting there doing nothing. So there's no point going too mad with this. 10 or so units is absolutely fine. Just like before, we'll want to drag some power over to give it a kickstart, but this time, because it doesn't generate power on its own, we'll want to send over as much power as we can. As soon as we've done that, our machines will come to life, and we are now generating iron, our raw material for building. Now, as this machine's going, you'll see that the amount of iron ore available on the planet's surface over here will start falling off. This does regenerate at the rate of 1 per second, but we're pulling up 3 per second because we have 3 output lines from our trade hub. So that number is going to continue to fall until our storage units and on this side are completely full and our production has basically stopped or has fallen to a level that matches our output from the planet. Okay, now while we're here, on the bottom right hand corner you can see the demand of the planet. So Mars here has a demand for iron, which is the same resource that we're actually producing in orbit from Mars. So what we'll want now is a way of sending some of this iron back down to the surface to meet that demand. This is the basic material that we need to grow Mars as a colony. So what we're going to do is go back to our build menu and build a second trade hub. Trade hubs are one way. You can't use the same trade hub to both send and receive resources, so you do need a separate trade hub for basically each material that you're transporting to and from. Okay, so we can really put this anywhere, but I'm just going to put it down here. And what we want to do is I'm going to put in a line for these two, and that's just to help meet that demand a little bit quicker for the sake of the video. So just like before, we're going to... I've got to come out of the build menu, so press escape to come out of the build menu, and just like before, I'm going to bring the core over to the area that we want to build and just let the ship do that. So you can see that when it ran out of resources there, it actually picked up iron from this station. It didn't have to go down to the planet, we didn't have to tell it to go and restock. That is the purpose of building this refinery. We now have something that the ship can see. The ship can see that there's iron there, so it can see that it can go and get iron when it needs it rather than having to go down to the planet. So that we no longer need to micromanage that aspect of our builds. You can see that we've run out of carbon ore and our power is slowly running down. In theory, our ship can run out of power. In practice, it should go back to Venus and restock power from here when it's running low in the same way. But in practice, they don't always do that. So just to avoid running out of power, we're going to build another ship now called an energy carrier. Unlike with our stations, we're not going to build this from scratch. We're going to use a blueprint. But before I do that, I've just realised I've built this trade hub and I've actually not told it to send anything to the planet yet. So right-click our finished trade hub. Sell iron to colony, and there we go. So that's going to keep producing and it's going to keep sending resources down to the planet now. Our station here is going to run out of power, so that will need to be recharged as well. So the ship we're going to build now, the energy carrier, will both help our flagship to keep itself topped up, and will help our station here to keep itself topped up, so we don't need to keep transferring power to them manually. Right, so for this one you want to go down to blueprints on your left hand side, or you can press the U key as a shortcut. Once you have your blueprint screen and come up, this will normally be what it shows you as the first item on there. Now, the blueprint it's showing us to start with is actually a basic mining ship. These aren't really used in the current version. You only use them if you're mining from asteroids. So what we want to do is we want to find an energy carrier. So if you hit the magnifying glass icon here, this is our search function. And by default it'll bring you up to ships in the library. So these are ships which there are pre-built blueprints for. With the early game technology, you will only be able to build T1 ships. T2s use a higher end battery pack that requires gold, which you won't have access to yet, and you won't have the technology unlocked to build these battery packs anyway. These very high-end T3 ships, some of these will use even more advanced batteries, like these plasma cells. These are right up at the end of the technology tree. You won't be able to build these at all yet. Other ships here, like the construction ship, use multiple construction cannons, which again you need to unlock. Technology for. And the trading ships again use buildings that you won't have unlocked yet. So at the moment you want to basically stick to T1s for all of your construction, and that's basically just a guarantee you've got the technology there until you've unlocked something more. Right, so Energy Carrier T1 is the ship we're going to want to build at the moment. So left click on that, hit build, and this screen will ask you what material you want to build it from. We only have access to iron, so just leave it as iron for the moment and hit build. So you'll get this sort of blueprint that follows the mouse around. You can place that down anywhere you want to build it. And just like before, we drag our core of our ship over. And that will start building for us. Just like before, I'm going to just speed things through a bit for the video. And there we go. Now at the moment the energy carrier doesn't have any power, so we're going to want to give it a little kick to start with, just like we did for the two stations. And then we can right click our energy carrier, select auto logic, and set ship as energy carrier. So it doesn't know it's an energy carrier until you tell it it is. The moment I do that, you can see it's going to whip off somewhere, and what that's actually doing is that's going off to our station at Venus to gather power. As soon as it's topped up its batteries, it's going to come back and top up our station here. It won't top up our flagship just yet, because it doesn't top up a station or a ship until your energy levels falls below, I think it's about 25–30%. So our station drastically needs a charge. It's completely run out of power now, but flagship's not doing too badly and still has some power. There we go, so that's come back, that's topping up our station for us, so we no longer need to babysit our station. The energy carrier will do that for us. Okay, so with this basic setup we're almost done. Now what I would normally do now is build a small construction ship as well. Just like the energy carrier, you can build this directly from the blueprints menu, and there'll be somewhere here a construction ship. Here we go, construction ship T1, which just like before you can build down. Now you can actually build custom ships as well. If you want to do that, you basically do it the same way as you did for the station here. You'd hit your build key, put down a ship core, and then just build around the ship core. So you do have the ability here to build customized ships, and there's also an option to go into the blueprint editor, but I think that'll have to be a different video just because this one's already getting quite long. Right, so just like before, going to speed through our construction here. Now, while our construction's been continuing here, we've completed enough of our demand here on the planet that the planet's saying that it can do an upgrade now. It's requesting this resource, iron shells, and if we can supply that resource, Mars will upgrade to level 2. Currently level 1 of 6, that'll upgrade to level 2. That will allow the population to grow beyond 250,000. Now, this will have two effects for us in terms of progression. First, it will double the planet's resource demand from 0.25 per second iron to 0.5 per second iron, basically doubles the demand. So instead of 1 unit every 4 seconds, that's 1 unit every 2 seconds. It would also give us release some memory for us, which will allow us to progress further up the tech tree. So this is your method for progression, is either meeting these demands for ad hoc resources so a colony can grow, or by starting new colonies. 2 different ways of expanding your memory pool so that you can do more research. Just going to finish off our construction ship. Now, as the construction ship progressed there, you'll have seen that it's basically the energy carrier whipped in and gave it some energy to start with, so we didn't need to do that. We can now set this ship to an auto builder, so we right click on the ship core as before, auto logic and auto builder, and that ship will now automatically run off and get resources and do any construction jobs that we tell it to do. We won't need to manually tell it to start construction for us. So just like the energy carrier, this basically means that you no longer need to babysit the ships. You don't need to tell them what to do. They will just do it for you as soon as you put down a build request. And we're in a position now where your ships can't really run out of energy. The worst case here is that you either burn through so much of your iron that your building ships have to slow down because they don't have enough material to build with, but your planet is constantly generating iron ore, so your planet will generate more iron for you. And although things might slow down, you won't get a game over. Your station over here is now generating power. You can see it's topping up its batteries again after the energy carrier has refilled its batteries. So again, you won't get a game over for running out of power because you have a constant source of it, and you have a ship which is going to make sure that all of your other ships are in a good position for power. Right, so there's still a little bit to go through though. So I'll need to show how to set up a trade route for completing this order for the iron shells, and I'll also need to show you how to set demand for the iron ingots that this planet is requesting for its own growth. So this is core to your progression, is being able to get the resources to the right place. There's a couple of new buildings that I'll need to show you how to do that with. Right, so we want to go to our tech tree to start with. So Venus was requesting iron ores, iron ingots, as its constant demand item. So we'll need to set up a constant supply chain for that. And Mars is requesting iron shells, and it's requesting that just as a one-off, but it's possible that other planets will request it as a permanent item. It's fairly low in your tech tree and does give you access to a lot of other technologies as you go further up that tree, so we'll need it for the moment, but if we don't need it later on, we can always come back and forget the research. So if you have a research like this that you don't need anymore, and I'll show you this with one of the texts from up here, say water harvesting, if we don't need that, you can select it on here and hit erase memory, and that will actually give you the research points, the 500 XP for that, back into your free memory pool. So if after we filled the demand for the iron shells, we found that we had no planets requesting iron shells and didn't need anything from that tech tree, we could then forget that, release that memory, and then spend that memory on other technology that we do need. Okay, so just like before, we've got the yellow bar at the bottom showing us our how much of our memory it has reserved for the technology we've queued, and the green bar is slowly filling up to match that. Our flagship here is going to be burning through its power while it's doing that research, but otherwise not doing much. Right, so just to speed the video along a bit, if you want to speed your research along, you can speed your research along by building more research stations. Just bear in mind that more research stations will put more strain on your power production, so there is a bit of a balancing act there. Research stations are one of the most energy hungry buildings you can build. So we now have both of our researches unlocked, so we're going to expand our iron production station here to cover both of those resources. So go back to our build menu, machines, and we want a stamper, or 2 stampers even, to produce iron ingots for the station over at Venus. And we'll also want a fabricator, or 2 fabricators even, to meet our demand for iron shells. Right, so just like before, we're going to want to build pneumo tubes across from somewhere. And what I'm going to do here is to fork these lines out. So basically use one line to feed 2 of these machines. I mentioned that we could do this earlier, and again, I'm not doing this to be efficient or anything, it's just really showing you how everything works so that you can build your own stations and you know how to do that. Now you can see I've not had to tell this ship to come and start building, it's just gone and got some iron and it's come back and started building on its own. So having a ship set as an auto builder here does mean that you spending a lot less time micromanaging ships, putting them into position, getting resources for them, that kind of thing. It will just do it on its own now, which is fantastic. Again, our energy carriers just come back in and topped us up, so again, we're not having to babysit, we're not having to micromanage things to progress. Right, so we're going to want to tell our fabricators here to start building iron shells. You can see that most of the things they can build are locked out because we haven't unlocked them yet, but that's fine. We want iron shells. Copy to selected machines, pop that in there. And right off the bat you can see it's not doing anything because I've connected the wrong resource. I've made an error. Or have I? Yeah, I have actually made an error. This wasn't for the video, I just forgot that they use iron ingots instead. So we're going to correct that. So go back to our build menu, press the delete key, and we can take this line out. Now, this will actually be handy to show you something. As I've taken out this part of tube, one of these blocks of iron is going to fall out of the station. And that is now just lost to space. That's because we don't have any walls to our station, so any material that falls out of a tube or anything is literally just going to get lost to space. It's going to disappear. If you want to stop that happening, you can encase your station or a ship, and I definitely recommend doing this for ships for reasons I'll get into later, in 2 or 3 high walls. This will basically create a border that the materials can't drop past. Now, 2 high walls are enough to stop your resources from falling out of your station. 3 high walls act as armor, so if your ship station is attacked, the enemy shots have to go through the 3 high wall before they can get to any of your machines. And you can double, triple, quadruple that up to make your ships or stations harder to damage, if that makes sense. 3 high walls will also stop the robots that are helping with the build job here getting into the station. So you'll occasionally want to build 2 high walls which they can navigate past, just basically to help them out when it comes to building your ship. And what you can also do is you can build a hatch, which is a cosmetic item which just covers those 2 high walls and makes it obvious that that's where your robots are coming into and out of the building from. Why are you all going back? There's iron there. Why are we all going back? Okay, it's just repositioning itself. Yeah, so there you go. So that blue marker there's your hatch, and it's basically just a small entrance way for your robots so they can get into the station, even if you have the walls there. I didn't actually need the walls at this point. That's more just for demonstration. I'll probably need to build something over them, so those won't be there for long. But there we go. Right, so our extraction machine here, we're going to want to right-click that and tell that to start producing iron ingots. Sorry, our stamper machine even. I am mixing up all my terms today, I do apologise. And then we're going to want to build a storage unit or 2. I'm going to say 2. And what we're going to want to do is connect our 2 stampers to our storage units. We're going to want to connect our storage unit to our other storage units. And we're going to want to connect then our storage unit to our fabricators so that those can start producing shells. Again, not trying to be neat or tidy, just getting it running is a basic job today. So we'll set those up to store iron ingots. Copy to selected, and there we go. So that's all going and doing its thing now. While that's running, you'll see that our fabricators here haven't really done anything because they've got no output line. So at the moment they've got nowhere to put the shells that are finishing. So I did mention earlier that I'd need to build some other bits and pieces. I've got space here to put some storage units down here, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. And we're going to run an output line from that one all the way through, and we're going to do the same here, output line from this one all the way through. Set our storage units up for iron shells. Where are you? Iron shells, there you are. Copy to selected, and there we go. Right, now I haven't left any space to connect that up to a trade hub because we don't really need to. The planet here has only requested 500 units of iron shells, and setting up an entire trade hub is, or teleportation relays for a demand that's only a temporary demand. It is not really worth it. If we need to move the iron shells to other planets later on, we can do that using the same method I'm going to do here. So what I'm going to do is go to our blueprints again and build a trader. And again, you can do a custom build if you prefer to, but just for the sake of the video, we're just trying to speed things along a bit. And once that is built, and That's got a little bit of power. That will be able to start doing that. Before our trader can do anything, we need to tell it what the trade routes are that we want it to cover. So we want to go to our map again and hit the filter key here in the bottom left. This will show you all of the resource types you can move around, and in this case we're looking to move iron shells. So we're going down to iron shells here and select this. The green circles show you supply and the blue circles show you demand. So what you want to do is connect a green circle here to a blue circle, and that is saying that there's a trade route there. And we basically want to move resources from there to there, if that makes sense. Once we've got the trade route set up on the map, we can escape out, and we need to tell our trade ship that it is a trade ship. So right click on the ship's core, auto logic, set ship to trade routes, and that ship will in theory start picking up iron shells from our station and then taking them down to the planet for us. Now, we've not set up a trade hub for it, we're not teleporting resources down to the planet like we're doing for our iron because it's only a temporary thing. And as soon as that demand has been filled, the trade route will automatically disappear from the map. So your ships won't run around trying to complete trade routes which have already been filled up. You can see the trade ship is picking up power from the energy carrier, it's picking up new iron shells from the ship, from the station. So again, we're not having to babysit it, we're just telling the game what we want to do, and the ships we've set to automatically do it will go and do that for us. Right, okay, so while that's working on filling our demand down here, we are going to want to move these iron ingots from here over to Venus. Now, this is a constant demand, so unlike with the iron shells, we're going to want to set in a sort of relay system so that we can move that over without having to keep sending ships back and forth all the time. So we're going to need a bit more space for this. Now, just to show you this, you can put down a machine anywhere where it's touching a unit of your ship. You can't build one out in the middle of space, but as long as it's touching a part of your ship that's already built, you can just pop that down, and it will build the one high backing wall out of iron by default for you. So we'll just wall that in. And what we're going to do is just build 2 pneumo tubes through as well to connect these 2 storage units to our teleportation relay. Right, we'll right click our teleportation relay, set it as a sender, and set our material type to iron ingots. And we do that now basically just so that it's all set up, and then once we've got the next set in the relay set up, we can just go through and follow the chain and everything's already set up for us. Okay, so the teleportation relay, basically when you right click and hit connect, you can connect that to a station in the next sector over, and it will send materials over to that station for you without you having to keep using ships to ferry things back and forth. This is more energy efficient than moving ships, particularly if you're playing with the high hyper jump cost multipliers. But it does require space on the stations, so it's going to eat into your floor plan for your station to have a lot of relays in place. So there is a balancing act. Sometimes for short distance routes you'll prefer to use a trading ship just to free up some floor plan on your stations. It is a balancing act, and you have to find your own balance. Every game will be unique, the layout for the planets will be unique from game to game. Right, now at the start of the game a teleportation relay can only send items 1 sector over, so we can send this over to Earth but not all the way to Venus. So back at Earth we're going to want to build a small relay station here. So station core. Now I'm just going to build this very tight and compact. I'm not going to try and make it look pretty or anything. I'm just going to build a machine, teleportation relay. I'm going to build a machine, another teleportation relay, and I'm going to put some batteries down, and that's basically what I'm just going to do here. As I said, it's just for the video, not trying to make things look pretty, not trying to be efficient, just trying to get things moving. For the pneumo tube, I'm just going to do a single link like that. I'm not going to do a storage unit because the teleportation relays are actually quite slow. There's no real sense in putting a buffer here in the middle of it. You're better off just putting buffers at the sending end or the receiving end and taking it from there. Oh, okay, so our construction ship apparently went off to get more iron. You can see that this is actually running fairly low on its battery power now, but that's okay. The energy carrier will come along soon and re-top that up. So this will speed us along a bit. Okay, so our station's here, we've got the 2 teleportation relays in place, and we've got basic power so we can start moving. like before, it's not doing anything yet, so it's not using any of that power. We're just going to go back to Venus now, and machines, teleportation relay. So this is the other end of our pipe, as it were. We're going to build a local storage buffer for our materials, which will be our iron ingots, and we're going to build another trade hub. So just like before, it's basically just connecting all of that in sequence. I'll be honest with you, the teleportation relays are so slow that they can only actually saturate one of these pipes. So there's no need to build 3 like I've done here. But sometimes you might want to build 3 just to make it pretty, basically. So we're going to right-click our storage unit here, set that to iron ingots, right-click our trade hub and tell that we're selling the iron ingots back to the planet. We're now just putting our links in place. So if we go back to Mars, we'll hit our teleportation relay, right-click it, and hit connect. We're going to connect that to Earth, and we're going to connect it to one of our 2 relays here. So that will line itself up automatically, and you can see it's already brought the first resource through. This relay is still idle, so we want to right-click. We want to set that to iron ingots, sender, and connect. And just like before, we're going to go to Venus this time and show it which relay to send it to. So after a few seconds, that will line itself up, and there we go. We're now moving iron ingots from Mars to Venus and down to the planet. No ships involved, it's just moving through the stations. And we're slowly filling our demand here for the iron ingots of Venus. Now, if you have a planet with very high demand, you might need to double up on your teleportation relays. These can only move, I think it's either 1 item a second or 1 item every 2 seconds. I think it's 1 item every second. So there is a sort of limit on their throughput there. But basically, if you just let that run, that will slowly wear down, because our demand here on the planet is only 1 item every 4 seconds. So even at 1 item a second, we're still running at 4 times the capacity for the demand there. So that will eventually go down to 0. This storage unit will start filling up as a buffer. The main reason to have that buffer there is if our production on this end stalls. For example, if all of the iron ingots in these storage units are being pushed through to the fabricators, or a trade ship comes in and eats up all the capacity there, having a small buffer on this side will allow this to keep feeding the planet with the iron ingots it requests for a little bit after the supply has been cut off, which will give your supply chain on this end time to recover and time to start moving resources back through again. Okay, now while we've been doing this, we've met our demand down on the planet's surface for our iron shells, so that order has disappeared now. You can see with our iron now, our demand has increased. Now, it's not increased as much as I thought it did. I thought it would increase to 0.5 per second. It's actually increased to 0.31 per second. So oh no, it's up to 0.3.2. Sorry, 0.32. Okay. Right, okay. I'm not entirely sure how that works, so I'll just leave that running and see where we go. But what that has done is when our demand was met. Okay, yes, it does go up to 0.5. That's given us our 16,000 units of additional memory, which now gives us basically more memory that we can use to advance up the tech tree. So this is how you progress. You're basically meeting your constant demand for your planet's resources, and then filling in the side orders for the materials they need to upgrade. And every time they upgrade, you get more memory available for your own upgrades. That's basically your progression loop. We won't know for a while yet which resource this planet will request. You won't know until they've actually met enough of their demand for their constant demand scenario here. There we go. So we left that running for a while, and that's now saying it wants nickel, which you'll need a separate factory for, a separate supply chain for, as it's not something we're extracting yet. And going back to Mars, Mars has now requested for its next upgrade coolants, which is again somewhere else on your tech tree, so you need to set up new facilities for that as well. Now, I'm not going to go through how to get those resources. That's outside of the scope of this video. We've shown our basic progression loop, we've shown how to get ourselves started, how to start ourselves moving. We have a construction ship set up, we have an energy carrier set up, we have a trading ship set up, which covers all of our basic roles. You could at this point self-destruct your flagship too if you wanted, which I'm actually going to do on this video just to show you that we don't need this anymore. And if I go back to Venus, I can actually build some research stations here where we're producing power. Okay, and doing that, we basically have everything we need. We have research, we have power, we have a building ship which is going and doing all of our building jobs for us. We have a trade ship to cover the ad hoc demand when we don't have a relay in place. We have everything we need now to progress the game at our own pace, to develop at our own pace, and not have to worry about a game over situation. Right, so in terms of progression from here, I will leave this as a player exercise, but basically you'll want to go out and explore other sectors with one of your ships. You'll want to right click and claim them like you did before, paying particular attention to the ones with the double lines, as those are the ones which we will set up colonies on, and every colony you set will increase the resources that you have available to you and the amount of memory you have available for your technology tree. I would normally recommend using an energy carrier to do the exploration, so you could use the energy carrier you've already built and just take control of it for a short while, or if you prefer to, you could build a second energy carrier that's built specifically for exploration and use that to go out and explore and claim sectors. How you choose to do that's entirely up to you. In terms of progression, when you start looking at the resources other sectors produce, you want to start moving up your tech tree. So Saturn will always be nickel as its resource that it generates for you. So on your tech tree, you need to research nickel ore mining and then nickel extraction to be able to actually pull those resources up and then do something useful with them. The other base Mars was requesting coolant. That's on a second tree over here, and for that you'll need water harvest and coolant from water. You'll also need a planet which has water as a resource that you can mine. I don't have that at the moment, and you don't normally get water in one of your starting 6 sectors, so you'll need to go and explore to find a water source to be able to fill that demand. The other important technology that you'll need, and I'll show you this right off the bat, is down here, sectors limit. So this increases the number of sectors you can claim. At the beginning of the game, you can only claim 8 sectors, and that includes Earth. So in practice, that means you have 7 sectors that you can claim freely. You will want to increase that number fairly early on, because otherwise you'll hit a limit where you just can't start any new colonies and gain any more technology for your gain any more memory for your technology tree. So I would probably say as soon as you've hit this point where you no longer have to worry about power, you no longer have to worry about raw materials, I would say this is a good time to nip in and do that first level of research on your sectors limits. Sectors limit 3 will cost you double the amount of memory, 16,000. So this will, if I just queued that up, that would eat most of our available memory here. So leave that until you've actually got your 16 sectors capped out. Just remember that you will need to research that at some point to be able to progress past that 16 sector wall. But at the moment you'll obviously have other demands on your memory as well. The memory that you need for your coolant, the memory you need for your nickel. So be selective. Don't spend too much of your memory on technology you don't need yet, because it will make it more difficult to progress if you don't find that you need something and you just can't unlock it because you've run out of memory. So Saturn here is always going to be nickel. There's another planet here that you can't see yet, Jupiter. The Jupiter sector will always produce oil. And this asteroid here, you can't really... The asteroid sector doesn't give you any memory, so you might want to skip over it if you can get to all of the other sectors without having to claim it. What an asteroid is useful for is you can build these miner ships that I skipped over earlier. Where are we? Miners. I'm sure I saw one earlier. There we go, miner. So you can build these miner ships and set them to mine asteroids in the same way we did for the trade routes earlier. Basically what they'll do is they'll pick up iron ore from an asteroid like this and bring it over to basically to a storage unit in a station like this when it's running low. In practice, it's probably not worth it. Mining from an asteroid is quite slow. It's energy efficient, but it is quite slow. So you probably won't want to do that until you hit a position where your planets just can't keep up with the resources that you need. So it's a great source of additional resources if your planets aren't keeping up, but early game at least, not worth getting into really. I think that pretty much covers it for starting out. if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them below, or send me a message on Discord, and I'll be happy to answer what I can. But for the moment, that does cover our initial sort of what we need to do to start the game running. It covers basically how you navigate through the UIs for all of the essential items. Feel free to poke through the UI. There are bits and pieces in here that might be helpful. So in the module section, when you're building a space station, you can basically just ponk down one of these modules if you don't want to lay it out yourself. Some people will find that preferable to doing ad hoc builds like I've been doing during this video. Building ad hoc gives you a lot more flexibility, but you don't then need to think about obviously how you're connecting machines to each other, making sure you've got enough space for that kind of thing. I don't remember if I covered it, but if you make a mistake with your build orders, you can press B and press the delete key to basically just take a building out of a unit. That's easy enough to do. And if you end up with any resources like this somewhere in a station that you want to get rid of, you can just drag and drop them into space, and the station will just throw them into space and get rid of them for you. There is one last thing I should really show you before signing off the video, and that's resource zones. So in our construction ship, wherever that is, here you go. In our construction ship, you can, if you press K when you can see your construction ship, you'll see these resource zones pop up. So these are parts of the ship which are allocated to store particular resources that it might use in its future. You can use the storage units like we've been using on our stations for this as well. Open air resources like this are the only... Basically you need to build open air units like this if you want them to be accessible to the robots. Storage units can store more in a set amount of area, but they're not accessible to the robots. They can't pull any resources out of them. So to create an open air storage area like this, you need to basically press K, add a resource zone, select the material you want to build the zone for, and just drag that out. It will complain if you try and draw outside of the outlines of a station, but that's basically all it is. Right click and delete that, we don't need that. You can change what material a resource zone is using by right clicking it, clicking on the material, and then clicking the material you want in there. I'm going to do that in my construction ship at the moment because we don't have access to these other materials, gold and the composite. So if I just set that out to all iron, that's going to max out the capacity it has for carrying, and just make the most of the resources we have. One last thing to show you on this is how to set the tubes up like this so they can actually pull the resources into the tube when they're in one of these areas. Basically when you draw a new line of tubes along, it's going to look like that to start with. Now that's only going to pull from the previous section of tube, which isn't useful when you're trying to pull resources in from a resource zone like that. So to change that, you would right click on a section of your tube. This screen will show up, and you can change then the configuration of each point. You have to change the arrows to match the direction that you want the items to progress in. It's a one-way system. This wrench icon here is for a filter if you're doing something more complex, but most people watching this won't need to get into that. Just like with the machines, you can copy the tube settings and just copy that across to other tube sections to save you having to go through and do all of them manually. Right. I think that really does cover it for this video, but yeah, if there's any additional questions, anything you'd like me to go through, feel free to send a message and I'll see what I can do. Alrighty, no fancy splash screens, I'm just going to hit stop when I can remember which key stop was.